Welcome, everybody. Today with us again is Andy Day, AI evangelist and tenured CMO, to continue on our discussion around his portfolio management approach to AI. We're going to take a look at life sciences. And so welcome back, Andy. Thank you very much for joining us. The first question I have for you, and I get this all the time, and we mentioned this a little bit off camera here, how do we define life sciences? So for the folks out there who are maybe a little bit more familiar with sort of the med device side of things in terms of healthcare, how do you take a look at the life sciences industry there?
Thank you. First and foremost, Matt, thank you for this opportunity. I think we had a great conversation the last time, and this one should, only be better. So yes, so that's a very interesting question for me, which I've spent a lot of time thinking about, especially because I started life with life sciences and then moved into healthcare. I'm very fortunate to have worked across all four segments. So this is the way I look at it. This is something I had to craft in a previous company where I had a sales force that did not understand healthcare very well. So I think the way to look at it is presence, right, on the y-axis, global presence versus regional or local presence, and then literally the margin of the products and services offered. So in my humble opinion, life sciences is really pharma, biotech, med devices, and diagnostics, right? So relatively high margin products. They're all global companies. The other big difference is they're manufacturers, right? In sharp contrast, payers obviously offer services, insurance. They insure in the US. They obviously pay for all the treatment we go through against your employer plans and all of that. Still high margin services, which obviously attracts a lot of controversy. And then the most local and closest to the customers are the healthcare providers, right? Which are the hospitals. And again, you have the numbers. You have hundreds of pharma and med device companies, hundreds of payers, and then tens of thousands of healthcare providers. The other two interesting angles to think about is you look at proximity to patients, right? So healthcare providers are the closest to patients, is that's where treatment is administered. Payers obviously deal with them because they pay for it. Pharma and med devices are usually the most removed, right? Unless it's a clinical trial scenario, which again is really administered by an intermediary like a CRO. But I think that, and then the last piece, given that we're going to talk about AI and analytics, in terms of AI and analytics or at least analytics adoption maturity, big pharma, med devices, med diagnostics have been the most mature because they've behaved like large companies in most other industries like CPG and retail. Payers probably next. The providers were actually the least mature, and analytics adoption was hugely triggered by the Affordable Care Act, right? And the renaissance in healthcare, which happened in North America and Canada, and I think is now happening across the world. So did I answer your question? So you have life sciences, really big pharma, biotech, med devices, diagnostics, and then healthcare is providers and payers. But again, if you step back, all of this healthcare and life sciences are loosely referred to as healthcare, right?
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. And I think it's something we'll get into a little bit further on in the conversation today, which is around there must be a fairly significant shift in terms of the go-to-market strategy, marketing strategy, what you do from a commercial perspective across, those various portfolios. There needs to be a little bit of sensitivity, I would assume, to the differences that would create for sure.
Yeah. I hopefully answered your question. I put a lot of thought crafting this, and it helps people really understand the differences, and especially from a go-to-market and innovation strategy. To your point, you've got to segment and target based on.
So then when we take a look at the life sciences segment, and I was, you teased the audience, let's say that in the first conversation we had around, taking that portfolio management approach and applying it into the life sciences space. I'm sure some folks out there would love to hear a little bit more around that.
Absolutely. I think this is really valuable. You see, this is a bit different from the one I had showed or I'd articulated for healthcare. The big difference was the medical robotics piece is perhaps not as important from a life sciences perspective. So machine learning, right, obviously is the big honcho. Generative AI and LLMs and NLP. NLP and NLG, natural language processing, natural language generation, is being subsumed by generative AI and LLMs.
Okay.
That's where disproportionate investment from VCs is happening. A lot of FOMO. Unfortunately, it's also the area that is the least mature, right? Especially in terms of hallucinations, copyright infringements, ability to really deploy use cases, which is where now deep learning really comes in, especially the evolution of what is being called agentic AI, with Salesforce and ServiceNow kind of at the forefront, this notion of large action models. So what that does is now go beyond automation to workflows, right? So you can literally drive self-service workflows, you can drive monitoring and exception management workflows, and we'll of course talk about those use cases in detail. And then there's robotic process automation. So what is happening is a very similar trajectory. So on the left-hand side, just as NLP and NLG is being supplanted by generative AI LLMs, my personal prediction is what is robotic process automation today will be supplanted by agentic AI and LLMs.
Interesting. I can see that too, actually. It's interesting you bring that up. I'm just curious around the quality of the data sets that drive, some of this in the background, comparing the life sciences space to what we did last time in the healthcare space. Do you find the data quality, the amount of data is present to drive, some of these pieces? I know obviously it's going to vary if we're talking, LLMs versus agentic, AI or LAMs there. But I'm just curious your perspective of that.
Just having worked across all four segments, and if you remember my previous slide, just by virtue of pharma, med device, and again I'm talking about kind of the larger companies.
Sure.
They have had a longer time to work on their data sets, data models, cleansing, all of that stuff, right? So I think kind of an approximation is they're probably more mature, say, related to healthcare providers, right? Where they've not been as IT. Pharma med device corporations are like large corporations, in-house IT, very sophisticated, which has evolved over the years. Healthcare providers have had some catching up to do, right? Payers somewhere in them. Payers are kind of close to big pharma med devices. So I think the data problem is not going away, right? Having clean data to work off, drive the algorithms, test the models, stage them, ensure that they are working well, is not going up. But I think life sciences is a little better equipped to do that just by virtue of maturity on that front relative to providers and payers, in my humble opinion.
Well, that makes sense. So then next piece here, the last time we had a conversation, I think you laid out, some sure bets and some easy sells along the particular journey. And I'd love to hear, I'm sure the audience would love to hear a little bit around your perspective on where that sits in life sciences.
Thank you. So just again, okay, this is a bit about risk again. I used this the last time. So just from a risk perspective, as everyone's rushing down the Gen AI FOMO path, right? Just wanted to, make people aware that that is also perhaps the most risky, right? With yet, ROI to be significantly proven, except for ambient listening and a few other use cases, right? And just want to make the point that machine learning, NLP, NLG, deep learning, agentic AI present a lot of potential on the healthcare front. You have medical robotics, machine vision. So think of, and again, drives on the point, think of it as a portfolio. And again, this tells you that how you manage a portfolio also helps you manage risk, right? Or adopt a risk-based approach to your portfolio. Again, psychology of customer adoption. This is a Harvard Business Review paper by Professor John Gorville, which I came across this paper while taking a course at Kellogg, and it has stayed with me, which is that innovators don't realize how much of change behavior is needed when they drive innovation to market. And they just focus on that x-axis, right? The product and service benefits, which from a customer's perspective is overstated, right? And what innovators or vendors don't understand is, it is really difficult for customers to change. So they like to hold on to the technology they have. Imagine going from the BlackBerry to the iPhone, right? So based on that, I think this 4-quadrant approach makes sense. So high change behavior required, low product benefit, no, sure failures. Why or not would you do that? You come up with something that again has perceived benefits from your perspective, but from a customer's perspective requires huge change in behavior. So that's a long haul. So the upper two quadrants is what I've focused on. Obviously, that's what's interesting is low change behavior required, relatively low product service benefits today, which is an easy sell. And when it's low change behavior, high product benefits, and I'm talking about 10x the perceived benefits
Right.
relative to the status quo, that's a smash hit, right? So based on that, I've adapted this framework, again, just based on what is the degree of change behavior needed from patients, physicians, nurses, providers, payers, policymakers, basically all of the stakeholders, and then what is the consequent benefits on ROI. And obviously, we'll focus on the smart smash hits and easy sales.
Sure.
So the first thing is machine learning, right? Everything, again, I want to drive home the point AI is far more than Gen AI, right? So from a machine learning perspective, propensity to buy insights for targeted patient, physician, customer outreach for higher ROI from marketing campaigns. This is happening, right? I mean, this is what you do with your, Salesforce data, mapping that to, getting clinical data. A use case I've personally seen is you've got a diabetes patient who's multi-morbid. Now, who are the diabetes patients with back pain? Who will potentially develop arthritis, and can you develop a campaign to bring them in, right, from a provider's perspective? But I think similar approach is obviously relevant from a life sciences perspective as well. I started my career with supply chain management, so that again is one of the most obvious areas: demand forecasting, supply chain planning
Mhm.
for both manufacturing and supply chain
Sure.
management, right? Really critical. Hey, your contract manufacturer ran into some issues. Where do you source alternative supplies from, right? All of that. From this one is becoming interesting and analyzing large clinical trial management data sets to optimize trial design, improve the patient recruitment process, predict outcomes, and manage risk. I think you're going to see a disproportionate. I've seen a number of startups operating in this area, but I won't be surprised if larger pharma med devices companies are working on this as well. And then an easy sell, probably the least mature, I've seen a couple of startups do this, is drug recipe development, right? From the wet lab to really being able to do in silico development, right? Within a workstation, which obviously is almost like simulation, which again
Sure.
has huge value. Make sense?
Absolutely.
So moving on to Gen AI, this is where all the, like I mentioned, all of the FOMO, all of the investments is every other. If you talk to 10 people, for most of them, AI is Gen AI, and nothing could be further from the. So four use cases that I've seen that make sense. So empowering patients to identify treatment options, who are the best providers with relevant data and insights at their fingertips, especially personalized medicine, right? For cancer and things, COPD, etc. The next obvious one, again, in a manufacturing context, superior quality control, manufacturing and supply chain processes and metrics, be it for med devices or drugs or something else, right? Or consumables, if you will. Enhance clinical trial efficiency through better data insights and protocols, and faster regulatory approvals just by virtue of ensuring that nothing falls by the wayside, using a LLM to be able to do that. And the fourth one is obviously very, very interesting and potentially some of the highest value. I've not seen evidence to see how mature this is. I don't know if people realize that Viagra was actually a failed blood pressure drug, right?
Mhm.
And when they went back in and discovered this this new indication, obviously it started a revolution, right? And we had Viagra and Cialis and knockoffs and lookalikes, and a multi-billion-dollar industry was created. So I think there's tremendous value to looking at all of your drugs which have failed for certain indications, and trying to understand if there are other indications that they can actually work for, right? And
Sure.
now with Gen AI, you have possibilities, and most importantly, the platform and the tools to make that happen.
Yeah,
Make
and
sense? Agree with this?
absolutely. And so here's a question for you, and I think it's an interesting one. When you look at the how to tackle some of these challenges and opportunities, whether it's from sort of the operational side or it's more of a go-to-market strategy, product development, that sort of thing, where and how do you feel that these strategies sort of need to be set and the change needs to be driven in organizations? Because when I look at a lot of these, I would assume that they really are truly cross-functional in nature. There's
Yeah,
obviously a heavy
absolutely.
IT component, but we're pulling in marketing, we're pulling in the commercial organization, we're pulling in manufacturing, R&D, and so on and so forth. And I'm just curious around where and how you feel some of these innovations, need to start and be driven in order to be fundamentally successful.
Great question. So the automotive industry, again, pioneered some of the best practices, right, from Lean Six Sigma. They had also invented or crafted, I used to be in manufacturing before I moved into healthcare. So there's a notion of concurrent engineering, which is basically exactly what you described. It's, engineering and product development and sales and marketing, uh, voice of customer, right? All at the same table when you conceive innovation, when you drive early trials, and the idea is do something that's really driven by value from the customer and through the customer's eyes, or fail fast, right? And move on to the next thing. So I think that kind of an approach. What I'm seeing on the healthcare side, there's something very interesting happening. You have chief data officers, chief analytics officers, uh, there are probably more C levels in IT than any other industry. You've got CMIOs, CHIOs, CDOs, CAOs. Especially chief data officers, chief analytics officers are evolving into chief artificial intelligence officers.
Okay.
Believe it, it's happening on the healthcare side.
Sure.
I suspect, given how what the propensity to innovate with AI is on the life sciences side, you may see that, right? I mean, life sciences has CTOs, CIOs, CDOs as well, and so it is very possible that you could see the role of a chief AI officer or a chief analytics officer who's chief analytics and AI officer, and they literally pull this this concurrent engineering model together, and almost it's got to be done with an ecosystem approach, right? Because again, it's not
Yes.
easy. You've
Yeah.
got a portfolio of different modalities. What do we have in-house? A data scientist in-house can do the machine learning piece, but for the LLMs, we'll have to work with Amazon or Google or whatever. Agentic AI, hey, is it Salesforce and ServiceNow? So I think you've got to holistically understand that build, buy, outsource partner strategy, something I'm going to work on, and hopefully we'll come back and discuss.
Sure.
But I hope I have answered your question. So I think a
Yeah.
nucleus around the chief data officer, chief analytics officer's role, really adopting this cross-functional concurrent engineering approach, and then evolving that into what is our ecosystem of innovation partners who make this happen for us.
Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense. Absolutely.
So going on to the last piece, yeah, agentic AI and robotic process automation. Clearly the least mature, but I think there's going to be enormous excitement, right? There's going to be a lot of things that we don't associate with AI today. So customer, patient, physician, self-service via agents, and robotic process automation does this, right? Self-service, call center agents, etc. Monitor and enhance marketing campaigns and sales productivity is a no-brainer. Hey, we deployed this messaging, and we quickly looked at what is the conversion, and that didn't work very well. So what do we tweak and pivot there? For med devices, I predict this, right? Today, there's a lot of telemetry, right, from devices on the cardiac rhythm management, neurological devices, etc. So monitoring those beyond the telemetry, right? What is very interesting is, so Medtronic, for instance, does both diabetes management as well as cardiac rhythm management, right? So the same patient could have a pacemaker or an implantable defibrillator, and
Sure.
one of Medtronic's pumps, right, attached to a continuous glucose monitoring sensor, and Medtronic doesn't know that, right? Because there are two functions within Medtronic who are looking at it in
Sure.
silos, right? So how do you perhaps, agentic AI potentially could be a way of bringing all that together. Manufacturing, supply chain scheduling, track and trace, pedigree authentication, monitoring and exception management, which is kind of a way of life in the manufacturing supply chain world. Agentic AI could play a great role there. Recruiting patients and investigators for clinical trials and monitoring processes, again, a kind of a no-brainer. And again, I think monitoring R&D, drug discovery and development, and improving processes is an idea whose time has come.
That's interesting. One question that popped into my head when you're going through this was when you look at the data and analytics that are currently and will continue to be in a greater and greater way pulled off of patients with respect to treatment and things that occur there, all the different sensors and data points. Then the IT fellow in me starts to look at it to ask the question around sort of the APIs, the integration, or is it going to be more verticalized and siloed by manufacturer? How do we look at interoperability and putting data back into the hands of the patient and obviously the physicians and so on who would support them in a way that is sort of open and simple. I'm curious if what
Yeah.
you're seeing out there in the space, or is it going to be, so it's like you have, Google and Android. I'm on the Medtronic, or I'm on the GE, or I'm on the whatever. What do you see happening there? I'm really curious.
Yeah, this is a billion-dollar problem. I actually wrote some of my early blog posts were about, again, Apple Health, right, versus Dosia and Google Health and Microsoft Health
Yeah,
Vault. Remember, right? Never took off, right, except for the Apple Health Vault, and I used exactly the same framework, right, to analyze it. There's a huge adoption paradox, which is that the people who need, the data capture, all of that data at the fingertips the most tend to be seniors and really chronically ill people who are not tech savvy. On the other hand, the people who are tech savvy and can drive the adoption and embrace it don't feel they need to do it, right? Because they are fit and
they're
healthy,
relatively healthy.
right? So that's
Yeah,
that's the adoption paradox that comes into play there. But successes I've seen are like Mayo Clinic working with Mayo Clinic integrating its Epic patient portals with the Apple health app, right?
sure.
So basically ensuring a patient goes to has an encounter. There's all of the physician notes entered, data from potentially devices or wearables is all entered in there, and then the patient can literally integrate and download that with Apple Health. And so
Mhm.
I think it's a bi-directional flow of data. I need to go back and look at it, but that's probably the closest to
Mhm.
solving the interoperability is the huge
There's a
overarching
big
challenge.
journey there. There's
Yeah,
a really big
exactly.
journey there.
But those are some of the early innovations I've seen. The other thing I've seen is as part of care coordination, I remember working with Ochsner Health, uh, high risk to rising risk patients, right, living under not so great conditions, challenge with compliance. So they actually gift them, right, Bluetooth compliant weighing scales, Apple watches, etc., to
Mhm.
make it really easy for that. If you really think about it, the Apple Watch is almost a quasi medical device, right?
Sure.
It can monitor so many vital signs. So Apple Watch integrated with the Apple Health app on your phone, which in turn can transmit data into your patient Epic patient portal or your Oracle Health Cerner patient portal is probably the easiest path to making this happen.
Sure. Bringing it back to the prior conversation we had around the commercial strategy, the marketing go-to-market strategy, clearly there needs to be some consideration there. You and I were discussing off camera this idea is, when we look at how these organizations are going to need to bring these ideas to market, the kind of conversations they're going to need to have with their customers, the space that they need to create with those relationships to take a little bit of risk, to innovate, to make investments together, let's say, to drive the kind of collaboration that's required. Really curious your perspective on that and the tips that you would provide these organizations as they look to bring these things to market.
Yeah, based on I've had the good fortune of delivering multiple presentations, hearing some very frustrated CIOs, CTOs, CHRs. They all talk about vendors coming and pushing solutions looking for problems, right? And then, by the way, are you going to train our model as well? Which again, huge change in behavior, right? Which is not conducive to driving adoption. So I think vendors have to realize that what works well in retail, where it's all about the shiny new toy, doesn't work well in healthcare, right? So laser focus on the jobs to be done and the challenges with the status quo, right? How is this job being done today, right? By the user personas. What does it mean for the KPI and metrics of the executive buyer, right?
Mhm.
Uh, Articulate the impact of AI is there really a need for AI? Is it going to be incremental, improvement, or is it whole new innovation? Is the automation going to drive down manual errors, right? So great use cases, automated scanning of DICOM images, right? So that if there are 10 patients who are at risk of stroke or heart failure, heart attack, it flags them for the radiologist to quickly look at them and then escalate them, right? So that's huge value, right? There, and takes away potential error or the ability of the radiologist to miss that. And so the measurable value and ROI is important. That's what I heard from all of them. It's like they're asking us to adopt technology, but we have no idea how is this going to drive value.
Right.
And again, because of FOMO, lot of the CIO CTOs are betting their careers and millions of dollars, right, on AI. And so if you can't show them a path to the value and the ROI, it doesn't work. Again, it's not all Gen AI. Deploy the appropriate AI modality, or what is pragmatic is a hybrid approach, right? Machine learning plus agentic AI, right? And those divides are getting blurred as we speak. That is aligned with the customer's AI strategy and direction from a build by outsource partner perspective, right? Just don't force fit stuff onto them. Secure adoption from 2 to 3 early adopter customers, demonstrate the value, turn them into robust references, and then showcase the value. Your marketing, again, I'm a value-based marketer, right? This has been the key to my success, is showcase the value and the ROI based on that hard dollar evidence, and not just the dollars, the metrics and KPIs, the change in culture. How did it impact a day in the life, right, of the user to create closable pipeline, close deals, and then rinse and repeat for the next use case. Don't go looking, if you're working in revenue cycle management, don't go looking for something in clinical, but instead, for instance, maybe look at supply chain, right, which is adjacent, so that you can take your current deployment and the referenceability, the goodwill you've earned, and take that to the adjacent line of business or function and cross-sell and upsell, right? So it's pretty simple to put on a PowerPoint slide, but there are obviously
a little more complex to execute in reality. But I think it's an excellent list here that you've put together, and I think it highlights, the importance of being very sensitive to a number of dynamics. I think, one is obviously, what's going on with our customers, and our customer's customer, I think is relevant. The sensitivity to the different modalities of AI and balancing the risks versus benefits, driving the kind of ROI that would justify even taking a look at it, especially as you say, when people are betting their careers, on this, and, are we chasing shiny objects? Are we driving, real sustained value for the customer and obviously for the organization over time? So I think this is very, very well done. And Andy, that brings me to sort of my last question for you, which is, how can you help? What do you do that might support some of these organizations as they look to take advantage of these opportunities in the market?
Yeah, I have my own strategy consulting firm. I've obviously have brought 10 plus software solutions to market, platforms, etc. So I have actually a 360-degree go-to-market model, which encompasses some of these best practices, and literally is a systematic way of doing this, right? From a new product introduction, from a new product launch perspective, ensuring that it's all centered around the voice of the customer and is driven by value at every step of the way. So that's something, if you think I can help you with, my email address is not very hard to remember. It's andy@andyday.com. So please engage with me, or reach out to Matt. Matt and I are partners. We work pretty closely together, and between Matt and I, we can potentially collaborate and make things happen and hopefully drive real value. And again, it's all about rapid time to market, right? That's where the value is. We can help make that happen from a sales and a marketing perspective.
Well, thank you very much, Andy, for joining us again. Merry Christmas to you, and Merry Christmas to everyone out there. I hope you have a wonderful holiday season, and I'm sure we'll all see each other again in the new year.
Merry Christmas and a happy holiday season to you, your family, and your audience. This was wonderful, and looking forward to the collaboration and partnership in 2025.
Thanks, Andy.